Welcome back, everybody. Vinyl update time. Got some thrift and record fair pickups for you today. First off, got to shout out to Stan Lee, passed away recently. Black Panther. I actually have this actual comic and the complete early run. Got to meet Stan a few years ago at a comic convention he was at in town here. Got some autographs signed from him. Huge influence on pop culture. Legend. What can you say about Stan the Man? Getting into some thrift finds, kind of slowed down a bit again, but I did have one haul I'll quickly share with you right now. Tears for Fears, The Hurting. I have another copy of this. I gotta check which one's an upgrade here, if any. Clockwork Orange soundtrack, already have this one again. I'll have to see which one's better condition again. A couple of jazz ones. These were all there at the same time, same place. Modern Jazz Quartet Patterns, early 60s. It's got Milt Jackson on Vibes, United Artists, apparently a soundtrack to a film. This was a real unusual one, an album I have again. Dave Brubeck, Time Out, of course, classic Take 5 hit on here. But this is actually, CBS label, that is actually a Colombian pressing, of all things to find in Canada, and in really nice shape. A couple more jazz ones, J.J. Johnson Quartet, Touch of Satin, early 60s I think on this one. 2i Columbia, nice shape. Ahmad Jamal Trio at the Pershing, but not for me. I think this one might even be late 50s. Very decent shape. Argo label. Roberta Flack, Chapter 2. That is, I have this already on the Tricolor Atlantic, but this is a red Canadian original, and actually promo copy. Nice shape. Very nice to find that one. This is an album I had already. Upgrade copy here. Earth, Wind and Fire. That's the Way of the World. 1975. And this was a real surprising one. You see this in the thrift store, it's usually pretty hammered, but this was actually an upgrade on my own copy. Isaac Hayes, Hot Buttered Soul, on the Enterprise label. Just a few little fingerprints here and there, but pretty decent shape. Classic soul album. Four Tops, Yesterday's Dreams. I think this one's late 60s. This is actually a kind of dark blue Motown label, which I guess is a later pressing. Cover kind of looks old and worn. Vinyl's in good shape. Classic Four Tops sound. A lot of covers on here. By the time we get to Phoenix, even the Monkees, Daydream Believer, The Associations, Never My Love, that kind of cover, but the classic Four Tops sound. Levi Stubbs is kind of high-strung vocals. Nice to find that one. And speaking of The Association, how's that for a segue? Found an upgrade copy of this one. I showed this in quite an earlier video. This is just a self-titled one by The Association on the gold Warner Brothers label. Let's find some kind of expanding their sound in the late 60s, getting a little bit heavier, some different arrangements, maybe influenced by the psychedelic stuff that was going on at the time. Real nice album, and an upgrade copy on the one I showed earlier. This is one I'd heard of, never heard before. Kind of heard it wasn't that good, but it's the Brooklyn Bridge. I ended up quite enjoying that one. Brooklyn Bridge was a group formed, as you might expect, on the Buddha label, formed, as you might expect, in the New York area, out of kind of some various disparate groups, and kind of out of the doo-wop scene. They're produced here by Wes Farrell, who had worked with Jay and the Americans, and actually wrote their hit Come a Bit Closer, which, as soon as I heard this, I kind of heard a Jay and the Americans influence in here, so that's where that comes from. Large group, kind of 11 members, I think it was at this time. They would go on to kind of reduce things a bit, but yeah, just classic late 60s pop with kind of a doo-wop influence. Some Jimmy Webb songs on here. Very nice stuff. Enjoyed that one. Nice harmonies. Lee Michaels. I've seen his records around, never really checked him out. It's from 1969, I guess. A&M. Recorded live in the studio with just him on keys. He played Hammond organ, keys, vocals, and bass. And then Bartholomew Smith Frost, a.k.a. Frosty, on drums, A lot of drums on this record, especially side one. Lots of solos, some breaks. Apparently, this guy Frosty was an influence on John Bonham. So cool, kind of blues rock, a little bit of psychedelic touches, I guess you would say. Last couple thrift finds, Diana Ross, Baby It's Me. Kind of reappraising her lately after finding that self-titled one of hers from 1970. This is her in disco style, produced by Richard Perry. Yeah, enjoyed this one. Last thrift find, Sea Wind. It's from a different day than the rest of them. CTI label. This is produced by Harvey Mason. It's got percussion by Ralph McDonald, and they were actually from Hawaii. Kind of very much jazz funk, jazz fusion. Think kind of Tower of Power, but with more of a jazz fusion sound, and you kind of have it. And also kind of a Christian element in some of their lyrics. Some songs are instrumental and some have lyrics. And you got songs like He Loves You, The Devil is a Liar, which definitely, and Praise, which definitely have a religious component to it. Getting into some record fair finds. First off, I got to thank everybody who watched my Junior Biles Spotlight, Reggae Spotlight. Hopefully I've uploaded that by now. If not, I have a Junior Biles Spotlight coming. But I picked up a couple more by him. A single on the Orchid label, Lee Perry production, Long Way, one of his classics, and also his massive career-establishing hit, Beat Down Babylon, on the Justice League label, another Lee Perry label. Now, getting into some record fair pickups. Went to one record fair. There was a second one, which has already passed. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to, but I did find some nice things at the first one. First off, from a friend of mine, The Royals, Down Comes the Rain. I don't know why it's credited to Spooky. That's on Tomoki label. I'm going to do a spotlight on Roy Cousins and the Royals at some point. Classic reggae harmony group. It's just a couple more pieces I want to pick up first. And last single I picked up, also from my friend, same seller I got that Royals one from, Nanny Goat by Larry and Alvin. That's a duo of Larry Marshall and Alvin Leslie. Some consider this the first true reggae single with the reggae beat in place. This appeared in 1968 for Studio One, Supreme label. That's a Studio One imprint. Classic, essential reggae hit here. Nanny Goat by Larry Marshall, the late Larry Marshall. I did a tribute spotlight to him a while back if you want to check that out. So, the first reggae record, some consider anyway, one of the very first. Some more record fair pickups. Buffy St. Marie, folk singer. I'm kind of working on her discography. Found this copy for a few bucks on the Vanguard label. Mix of styles here, some kind of folky stuff, some more pop-ready songs. There's a couple of Joni Mitchell covers on there from her early albums that apparently hadn't, Joni's versions hadn't appeared yet. This is one I've seen shown in the vinyl community before, so when I saw it in the bins, I had to grab it. Grover Washington Jr., Inner City Blues, of course highlighted by his covers of Marvin Gaye's title track, Inner City Blues, as well as Mercy, Mercy Me. Also Georgia on My Mind, Bill Withers' Ain't No Sunshine, and ironically, there's a cover of a Buffy St. Marie song on here, Until It's Time for You to Go, which appears in that previous album in a French version and arrangement. So, segue number 2. And that is on the Kudu label. Got this for $5, I think. Really nice shape. Beautiful, beautiful album. Those two Marvin Gaye songs you could mix in, do a nice mix with the Marvin Gaye vocal originals, and it would sound just seamless. Beautiful album. Roland Prince, Color Vision. This is 1976 on the Vanguard label. I found an album of his from the following year in a thrift haul a couple of years back. He is from Antigua. He's a jazz guitarist. Brings in a lot of flavors of the Caribbean in his music. There's a song called Iron Band Dance, which brings kind of the steel band sound in there. Samba de Unity on here, of course, kind of a Latin element. So he brings kind of those world elements into jazz guitar arrangements. He had played with a variety of players. showed this to my friend who sold me those 2 singles, who's authority on the Toronto reggae scene, and apparently he says Roland Prince had been around on the Toronto scene. I can't find any confirmation of that, but have to take that as authority. So very nice album here. Jazz guitar with a Caribbean fusion kind of element. Getting into some reggae finds from the record fair. This is a 12-inch single from the UK by Jimmy Lindsay, who had been a member of the group Samande. Appeared on their Promised Heights album, I believe. 12-inch single on yellow vinyl on the Gem label. Where's Your Love, backed with Daughters of Babylon. Both kind of a lovers rock, roots reggae, with some more rock-oriented instrumentation. There's some violins and strings and harmonic and things. Pretty decent. I have a LP of his called Children of Rastafari, I believe, or Children of Babylon might be called. Picked that up years ago. And there's at least one other LP by him. U Brown, Mr. Brown something. This is on the Virgin Frontline label, 1978. Virgin Frontline was hitting hard with reggae at that time. Iconic fist label there, barbed wire. U Brown, real name is Huford Brown. He was kind of an acolyte, stylistic acolyte of the great Jamaican DJ U Roy. Kind of had a similar style, similar flow to his music, but his own, with his own unique take on it. Classic album, one of 2 he did for Virgin's Frontline label, and a lot of the rhythm tracks here are from the debut Black Uhuru LP, which was produced by Prince Jammy in Jamaica. This is kind of partly produced out of the UK. Last couple of finds. This one I was pretty stoked to find an original of. It's been reissued by the Honest John's label. It is Lee Scratch Perry, The Return of Pipecock Jackson. This appeared in 1980, I believe. This is an original on the Black Star Liner label. 1980. In the late 70s, Lee Perry was in a state of personal and professional disintegration. He had had a furiously prolific and creative period in the 1970s with his legendary Black Ark studio. Working long hours, long into the night, putting out classic album after classic album. A series of setbacks in the late 70s sent him on a kind of a self-destructive spiral, which ended in the Black Ark's dismantling and eventual burning. Black Star Liner was a label based out of Holland that was working with Perry, trying to get him back into the music business. He had kind of run off all of his musicians. Everybody that used to hang around the studio had kind of evaporated from his life. So this is kind of a mishmash of stuff. There's some outtakes here from around the time of the Roast Fish and Cornbread album. Definitely with that Black Ark sound, but kind of an unfinished feel. Kind of like outtakes from the cutting room floor of a film is what you've got here, as well as some contemporary recordings with him and kind of his stream of consciousness lyrical sound that he's done ever since. But definitely some unique and interesting moments on here. Happy to find that one for sure. And last up, this was maybe the steal of the record fair. I found this for $5. I have another copy of this on a Canadian pressing, but I couldn't pass up the UK press. Fred Locke's Black Star Liner. This appeared in 1976. It's rated as an essential reggae album. Fred Locke's real name was Stafford Elliott. He'd been in a vocal harmony group called The Lyrics in the 1960s and early 70s, recorded for Studio One and various other producers, before kind of getting disillusioned with the music business, retreating, living on the beach, growing his locks and immersing himself in his Rastafarian faith. And together with the Rastafarian organization, the 12 Tribes of Israel, he came up with this album, the title track of which referencing Marcus Garvey's Black Star Liner, which was supposed to repatriate Africans from the New World back to Africa, was a major hit. Moved to the US in 1980s, I believe, still active today, as is U Brown on that earlier one. And this copy, it's got some cover issues, but it's otherwise in decent shape. Still includes the original poster and insert. It's a classic roots reggae album. So that's what I've got for you today, guys. Thanks for watching. Cheers and take care.